I declare the motion passed. Members' motion with no legislative effect. Ms. Doreen will move a motion on implementing the spirit of the Third Plenary Session of the 20th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China and earnestly addressing people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. 4 members will move amendments to the motion. This council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendments. Later, I will first call upon Ms. Doreen to speak and move the motion. Then I will call upon Dr. Johnny NG, Dr. SO Cheung-wing, Dr. Hoey and Professor Priscilla LEUNG to speak in sequence, but they may not move the amendments at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. I will now call upon Ms. Doreen to speak and move the motion. President, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. The third plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee was convened. It lays out a new direction for Hong Kong. The resolution on further deepening the reform for comprehensively to advance Chinese modernization was passed, and it sets out directions for Hong Kong that in the development of the 8 centers, in particular international shipping, trade, and financial centers. We also need to enhance governance and various systems so as to play a more pivotal role in assisting the country in opening up to the world. And this shows that the central authorities have high hopes for Hong Kong, and it has given us a new mission, and that is we should unleash the potential in Hong Kong in terms of taking forward reforms so as to vitalize the grassroots in Hong Kong and also build a better society for all. I understand that there are 3 key words in my motion, and that is we need to undertake reform, and we also need to enhance social cohesion and address people's livelihood issues. We need to enhance efficiency, and we need to build trust between the people and the government so as to create social harmony. Social cohesion will also help take forward reforms efficiently so as to help social advancements. That means we need the people's support. The purpose of my my motion is to use the 3 key words as a starting point. They will form a circle, and I'd like to explore ways to the way forward with members. Now, from the perspective of advancing social development and sustainable development in Hong Kong, I looked at some theories in other places. In order to have sustainable development, we need to have good social infrastructure, including social systems, as well as improving people's relationship with one another. These are core elements to good social infrastructure. Social infrastructure is crucial to the quality of a society. It also affects the economy. It's the way of promoting sustainable social as well as economic development. We also need fair and impartial judicial system. We also need the government to take responsibility and for people to have a say in public affairs. And I believe that there is more to be decided in terms of the latter. The government is also responsible for building social capital in a diverse manner. For example, in relation to grassroots, that may have far-reaching implications to our society, policies should be formulated to support them so as to address the livelihood issues that are crucial to taking forward reforms comprehensively. That is, according to the Central People's Government, we should always put people first, and this is also something that we need to adhere to. We need to make breakthroughs and do away with old thinkings, because people form the invaluable resources for reform. People are not the burden of the government. That means, coming back to my motion, the Government should earnestly address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life, as well as enhance social cohesion. We should unleash the potential in our labor force and address these livelihood issues. Now, our population is aging rapidly. That means many people will give up their jobs and reluctantly become carers of their old and frail family members. For carers, with our support, they are now given some breathing space with the help of government policies. But the problem remains. There is more to be desired. Now, when we consider reform and consider the plight of carers, we should think outside the box. On top of welfare handouts, we should also formulate long-term policies having regard to the objectives. Are we trying to resolve the problems relating to just a handful of carers, or are we talking about an inclusive society and more support for carers? Another group I'd like to turn to is the disabled. We need to work on the disabled group to enhance social cohesion. Is the weakest link. In terms of employment, social and welfare support, we need to give them more support. The government should put in place more supporting measures and provide employment support for the disabled job seekers. We need to make sure that the employment mechanism in society is running well, so as to provide a level playing field for all job seekers, able-bodied or otherwise. Now, to address livelihood issues, it is important as it relates to the quality of reform in Hong Kong. Well, I hope that the motion as well as the invaluable views to be offered by members will help government make an overhaul of their reform strategy so that we break new grounds and we do away with old concepts. We can think out of the box so that we can vitalize the community to take forward further deepening reforms. This is not only a mission, it is also a very, very important topic for the government to consider in formulating policies. We need to bolster our existing advantages. We also need to enhance governance and address issues facing the grassroots so as to enhance social stability. All these are intertwined. They formed a healthy circle. In other words, reform is not only a noun, it's a verb. Reform can enhance social integration and advance social progress. It is also the beginning of people's trust in the government. I urge members to support the motion. I so submit.
I now propose a question to you that Ms. Doreen Kong's motion be passed. Dr. Johnny NG. Thank you, President. The resolution of the CPC Central Committee passes a resolution about further deepening reform comprehensively to advance Chinese modernization, which lays down clear directions for the national development as well as that of Hong Kong. It is very significant. In order to implement the spirit of the Third Plenum, we need to earnestly address people's concern and difficulty in daily life and enhance social cohesion in Hong Kong. We also need to inject impetus to the development of Hong Kong. I think we need to leverage the institutional strength of one country, two system. The Third Plenum mentions that we need to enhance the opening up and on deepening reform comprehensively. We need to boost the interconnectivity and connectivity with the world. We have the advantage of our own country, and we are also connected to the world. That is exactly our strengths. The geopolitical tensions are getting more and more tense. We need to leverage our traditional institutional strength, and we also need to move with the times. We need to understand, respond to, and embrace changes. We also need to further strengthen and consolidate our 8 centers positioning. We are also the only jurisdiction that practices common law. Then we can enhance our status as an international financial shipping and trading center. This will bring new opportunities to Hong Kong. This is also the way that Hong Kong should move forward. Red tape should be reduced in order to further protect the strength of the ape center's positioning. We need to grow bigger the pie. That will affect the quality of life for members of the public, and that will also enhance the sense of belonging to Hong Kong. President Xi mentioned that we need to develop new quality productive forces. Coupled with the grand scheme of things of the Third Plenum, there are immense opportunities in Hong Kong. With new quality productive forces, we can develop new industries, say Web3, digital asset, AI. We can attract these enterprises to come to Hong Kong. We do have the potential to develop digital industries. Our financial system, our internationalized background can also help with the development of the industries in order to bring more opportunities to Hong Kong. At the same time, we need to promote the professionalization development of the financial industry. We also need to move towards the transformation of digitalization. We can enhance the competitive edge of Hong Kong. In fact, developing new quality productive forces will benefit the economy as well as the livelihood issues in Hong Kong. For example, we have an aging population in Hong Kong. We can promote the prevalence of drone technology in order to enhance the living quality of elderly people in order to promote silver economy. All in all, our country has achieved great results in development. We need to make it significant to reform. We need to do so for the people. That's exactly how we can improve the livelihood and the sense of gain and sense of satisfaction and happiness for people in Hong Kong. That's exactly how we can implement the spirit of the Third Plenum. I speak in support of Ms. Doreen motion, and I urge members to support her motion. Thank you, President. Dr. So Cheung-wing. Ms. Doreen Kong's motion focuses on the reform mentioned in the Third Plenum. It is very significant to Hong Kong. President Xi Jinping in September went to Gansu. He pointed out that efforts should be pulled to address the demands of the people and accomplish practical livelihood projects that are tangible and accessible to the people. President Xi Jinping also laid down the aspirations of people in Hong Kong. We have seen great results when it comes to improving livelihood issues. However, in different areas such as housing, healthcare, social benefits, there are still deep-rooted problems as well as a strong demand in this area. My amendment urges the relevant department of the administration to give full effect to Mr. John Lee's principle of results-oriented approach in order to enhance a sense of gain and satisfaction for members of the public. Then we can enjoy the benefits as a result of the improved governance, district governance in Hong Kong. Policy address balances different needs of different quarters of the community. The policies are tangible and related to the livelihood issues in Hong Kong. The policy address fully implements the spirit of working for the people in Hong Kong. However, in areas such as housing, elderly care, there are deep-rooted problems. There have been very long-standing problems for a long time. It is difficult to improve the situation without reform. Another main theme of 2024 policy address is that we need to reform for enhancing development and building our future together. Ms. Doreen Kong's motion mentions livelihood, addressing people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. Light public housing. Basic housing units were floated in a policy address. We need to significantly raise the supply of public housing in order to bid farewell to subdivided units, SDU. All these are good examples, good role models in relation to how to solve livelihood issues. We also need to learn from our country to address issues efficiently, so that the grassroots and the disadvantaged, we feel that the administration attaches great importance to their livelihood. The SAR government has been making improvements. It is at present very decisive. It has a bold mindset to make reform and will also tackle problems that prevent members of the public from feeling a sense of gain. We need to provide inclusive services and meet essential needs and provide a cushion for those most in need. That's exactly how we can allow members of the public to feel the sense of gain, feel the sense of happiness, so that these feelings are tangible and accessible. Thank you, Deputy President. Dr. Hoey Simon Lee. Thank you, Deputy President. Thank you, Mr. Doreen Kong, for moving the motion. I need to quote two paragraphs from the resolution. Improving the income distribution system, supporting new employment landscape, as well as other paragraphs about boosting the development of the real estate market, deepening the reform of the public healthcare system, improving the birth policies, elderly care policies, as well as elderly care policies in a flexible and orderly manner. The retirement age will be extended. Ensuring and enhancing the people's well-being in the course of development is one of the major tasks of Chinese modernization. In line with the principle of doing everything within our means, we will refine the systems of basic public services with a focus on providing inclusive services, meeting essential needs, and providing a cushion for those most in need. We will strive to resolve the most practical problems that are of the greatest and most direct concern to the people in order to meet people's aspirations for a better life. They are the core concepts about earnestly addressing people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. So the crux of the matter is 1, about employment and income distribution, as well as enhancement in the public service system. They are also the foci of my amendments. 1, we need to learn from the mainland China. That is, we need to grasp the most practical problems that are of the greatest and most direct concern to the people. We need to provide inclusive services, meet essential needs, and provide a cushion for those most in need. We also need to enhance the education system, and so on. I'll focus on employment now. For the 14th session, we need to focus on employment. That's exactly the crux of the matter that has to do with the livelihood issue of people. It has to do with the long-term order and prosperity of the country. It also has to do with people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. We need to put high-quality employment first in order to address people's concerns and difficulties. We also need to resolve the employment structural problems and conflicts. We need to provide assistance to help youth with employment and so on. On improving the public services system, we need to enhance the protection system in society in order to enhance the quality of employment. We also need to better protect the interests and rights of laborers. In addition, we need to sum up our experience in livelihood areas such as social services and welfare, exchange ideas with the mainland government to share reform experiences and learn from each other. One of the focus points is to make a reform in the public sector. We in Hong Kong have quite a lot of experience in this connection. Employment is the key to addressing people's concerns and difficulties. We need to implement the spirit of the Third Plenum to earnestly address people's concerns and difficulties. We need to understand more about the employment policies.
主席，
Professor Priscilla Leung. President, I speak in support of the motion on implementing the spirit of the Third Plenary Session of the 20th CPC Central Committee and earnestly addressing people's concerns and daily difficulties. I thank Ms. Doreen for the motion. Now, ruling a country is like preparing a culinary dish, and in fact, ever since I've become a legislative council member, I've been advocating the use of mediation to address different disputes such as water, seepage, and neighborhood disputes. And even before I joined this council, I've been advocating the same. Now, nobody could afford taking any case to the court, not even lawyers, professors, and other professionals. They'd rather seek help from the district councillors. Without the avenue of mediation available, many people lost their life savings because they've taken the case to the court. Now, the Lehman Brothers incident caused a lot of victims to go mad and lose their life savings because they couldn't afford litigation. So as the saying goes, we need to work on minute details in order to rule the country. Many people are grieved because of the lack of mediation as an avenue. And I also once moved a motion on mending social divide, and we need to do that in order to resolve livelihood issues. We also need to resolve disputes. In the past few years, I've visited many subdivided units. Now, getting out of the black box, that's what I would call this picture. We have a consolidation of pictures drawn by subdivided unit tenants, and they'd like to get out of this black box. And we've been thinking hard how we should help them. This drawing is made by an artist. They talk about their dreams. In fact, the dreams for some subdivided unit tenants are simply to have a stroll in the park. And some young people are really creative. They think of competing in a race with robots. We should help them realize their dreams. I'm very happy to say here that the current term of government has really thought out of the box. On subdivided units, I know that the government has rolled out some new initiatives, including the light public housing and basic housing unit. These initiatives have come with concrete timetables, and we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel as we could finally bid farewell to subdivided units. In this year's policy address, the Chief Executive and the SAR government have spoken on this issue at length, and that is about community mediation. So as the government delve into more smaller issues at the community level, they will be able to work on major issues for Hong Kong as well. Now, we can have mediation at different levels of the community. The International Organization for Mediation will set up its office in Hong Kong. It will be commissioned soon. In fact, according to members of the parliament in other places, mediation should not only happen at the level within the country. There should be intergovernmental mediation, and that is how we are pioneering in mediation at the international level. We've been working on it for 15 years. For the legal professionals and professionals from other sectors, they are now keen to receive training on mediation. I think this is a very good opportunity for us to work on dispute resolution at the community level. We have a lot of disputes happening in the community surrounding medical incidents, neighborhoods, family disputes, or disputes in education institutions. We need to help resolve these disputes to enhance a sense of fulfillment and happiness for the people. This is crucial to enhancing people's livelihood. I so submit.
Secretary for Labor and Welfare. President, first of all, I would like to thank Ms. Doreen for moving the motion on implementing the spirit of the third plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee and earnestly addressing people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. I also thank the members who have proposed amendments so that we can all exchange our views on the subject matter and put forward our opinion to explore in depth how we can implement the spirit of the third plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee and earnestly improve people's lives and enhance public satisfaction. The third plenary session concluded on 18th of July, on which the resolution of the CPC Central Committee on further deepening reform comprehensively to advance Chinese modernization was adopted, confirming that we are to further deepen reforms comprehensively to continue to improve and develop the system of socialism with Chinese characteristics and take forward the modernization of the country's system and capacity for governance. The resolution puts forward the important principle of adhering to the people-centered approach and states ensuring and enhancing the people's well-being in the course of development is one of the major tasks of Chinese modernization. In line with the principle of doing everything within our means, we will refine the systems of basic public services with the focus on providing inclusive services, meeting essential needs, and providing a cushion for those most in need. The resolution has also proposed specific directions on how the country can improve the social security system and the systems for supporting population development and providing related services, such as refining the policies and mechanisms for developing elderly care programs and industries, improving the social security and service systems for persons with disabilities, as well as making greater efforts to develop a public benefit childcare service system, etc., which have provided clear principles and guidelines for the reform of the social welfare system. The government is very much inspired by the principles and directions of work in the resolution. The policy address delivered by the Chief Executive last month is in line with the spirit of the third plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee, further deepening reforms and proposing a number of measures to enable the public to live and work in peace and contentment. Chapter 8 of the policy address focuses on improving people's livelihood in pursuit of happiness, proposing policy directions and specific measures to address the livelihood issues that are of greatest concern to the people of Hong Kong at present. This demonstrates the government's determination to uphold the spirit of the third plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee and earnestly address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. In order to improve people's livelihood in pursuit of happiness, the government should not only endeavor to ensure there is access to elderly care and childcare services and social assistance, so as to give the grassroots and wage earners a sense of gain and a sense of satisfaction, but to also earnestly address people's concerns and difficulties in a number of areas, such as housing and healthcare. For this reason, apart from me, we have the Undersecretary for Housing, Mr. Tai, the Undersecretary for Health, Dr. Lee, and the Undersecretary for Innovation, Technology and Industry, Ms. Chung, here today to listen to the suggestions made by members, and we will respond to the suggestions in our concluding remarks and explain in greater detail the various policies related to the subject matter. Thank you, President.
Ms. Chan Yut-ming. Thank you, Deputy President. The third plenary session concluded with success in Beijing on the 18th of July. The resolution on comprehensively further deepening the reform to advance Chinese modernization was passed. There are a number of highlights. For example, we need to enhance the quality of life among the people. We need to enhance public services and promote development for all, and take forward the policy of common prosperity. I support Ms. Doreen Kong's motion and the amendments. We need to give play to the spirit of reform by putting people first. According to the Chief Executive, in order to undertake reform, we need to have regard to local circumstances and the local condition. So we need to think about what we should do in taking forward reform. Now, the topic is about livelihood issues, so we're talking about day-to-day living, care for the elderly, disabled, so on and so forth. There are some long, deep-rooted problems such as subdivided units in Hong Kong. There are also other issues such as online car hailing. There are also problems with ideology for some. We are also limited by the existing situation, and I'd like to focus on one point today, and that is to improve the quality of life for rural residents to promote urban-rural integration. Now, according to the Chief Executive, the new territories will be developed, in particular Northern Metropolis, but we have scattered communities. In North District and Yuen Long, there are altogether 250 recognized villages. These villages are witnesses to Hong Kong's history for centuries. They have all along been patriots. They are the core of the patriotic force in Hong Kong. In terms of urban-rural integration, the focus is on the heritage and resources in the rural areas without any mentioning of integration or villagers' aspiration to a better life. There is no comprehensive blueprint to promote the quality of life of rural residents. The government should remove obstacles to support development in rural areas. And one key issue is land. We should think about making better use of rural land, and also development of village type or village environs, and also to promote sustainable development in the V and VE zones. Now, the government has come up with a compromise in resolving subdivided units, and that is basic housing unit with grace period to phase out substandard subdivided units in the long run. Likewise, we can rely on infrastructure development to provide the basic support to rural development. We can also then implement pilot to promote development in village areas. For years, we have not made any progress. For example, not many villages are connected to public sewers. Many villages still rely on septic tanks built right in front of the village houses. And for some villages, they are unable to receive signals, telecom signals, when they live near the Shenzhen boundary. And it takes a long time for them to travel to urban areas. Younger generations nowadays shunned rural areas. For storm drainage improvement works and other projects, the government has implemented a few to enhance infrastructure, but the progress is slow. The government should give us a timetable on the northern metropolis development and the development of rural areas so as to build a good foundation to improve villagers' quality of life as well as promoting countryside tourism. Dr. T. Shi-yun, we have a wealth gap in Hong Kong. We have uneven income distribution, age disparity, and radicalization of ideology on social media. There is now a big divide in society. Many countries have turned to studies relating to enhancing social cohesion. In February 2023, the United Nations published a report. It defines social cohesion. It also gives a definition. According to this report, social cohesion is like an adhesive, gluing together different groups of the community so that there is recognition of social systems, people have a sense of responsibility, and people become inclusive. In traditional Chinese culture, we also emphasize social cohesion. We want to have unity among the people, and if we can achieve that, we can even move mountains. And there is also a classic song for children in Hong Kong making the same point. We need to work on social cohesion, and I think there are two major factors. One, the effectiveness of governance, and two, the inclusiveness of our political system. For the former, the government must earnestly address people's concerns and difficulties. If this is achieved, we can enhance social cohesion. Take social welfare as an example. Every year, there are improvement measures in the policy address for welfare services, but all the government does is to increase the number of quotas and subsidies. For example, this year, the government has increased the number of quotas for pre-primary school, pre-primary support and other schemes. It is not a reform per se. It is not sufficient just to increase subsidies and places. I have the following suggestions. There should be medium to long-term welfare planning. It should come with manpower and resources support. The services should be tailor-made for the people in order to address the most imminent needs so that people have trust in the government. Second, we should enhance efficiency by consolidating existing services so that the services can cope with the ever-changing demand, so that we can avoid a fragmented approach. Third, we should mobilize the community. In the business sector, in recent years, they've been promoting ESG, so corporations should have a bigger role to play in shouldering corporate social responsibility. The government should also leverage social forces. Many patient groups and social organizations proactively work for the welfare of patients. We can leverage on their support to provide better care for our patients. If the government can heed my three suggestions, I'm sure that the governance can be more effective and social cohesion can be enhanced. Next, it is very important to have an inclusive political system. There should be wider participation by the public, in particular youths, because young people are the next generation of Hong Kong. We need to enhance a sense of belonging. For example, we can set up youth committees at the district level. We can collect views from them to help instill in them a sense of responsibility and a sense of belonging, and enhance mutual trust in the neighborhood. We need to promote diversity. We are a pluralistic society, and it is only normal that people hold diverse views. The government should not be selective in collecting views. This is essential. It is also what people aspire to. At the advisory bodies and different committees of the government, more members holding diverse views should be appointed to sit on these boards and committees. President Xi has remarked in the keynote speech that Hong Kong people should stay united so that with a can-do spirit we can build a better future for Hong Kong. I support all the motion and the amendments.
Mr. Chen Hak-kan. Thank you, Deputy President. The third plenum of the 20th Central Committee of the CPC passed a resolution to further deepen reform comprehensively to advance Chinese modernization. We have the responsibility to implement the spirit of the third plenum. It is also conducive to resolving the deep-seated conflicts and problems in Hong Kong. Since the 18th Central Committee of the CPC, the economy in mainland China has been developing steadily and rapidly. That's why society can stay prosperous. Our country also achieved great results. Some 100 million villagers were lifted out of poverty. Our country has very clear directions and goals. President Xi Jinping mentioned we need to foster social justice, social fairness, so that the reform would benefit all people in society. And that's how we can earnestly address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life in Ms. Doreen Kong's motion. We need to identify the purpose of the reform in Hong Kong. We want to carry out reform for the benefit of people in Hong Kong. We want to resolve deep-seated conflicts in Hong Kong so that we can share the fruits of reform with the general public. So in the policy address, we can see that the Chief Executive proposed reform measures in many areas that is in line with the national direction to carry out reforms. After we have a clear goal, I hope that the government will press ahead with the reform. Even if there are difficulties along the way, don't fall by the wayside. We need to stay determined. During the reform, what principles do we need to stick to? President Xi Jinping said that we need to press ahead with the reform that we really need to carry out. We need to focus on this. We need to stick to the principle of one country, two systems. We need to make it a steadfast institutional strength. In Hong Kong, we need to resolve deep-seated conflicts which affect the sense of gain and sense of satisfaction among members of the public. That's exactly what we need to carry out reform in, and that's exactly the area we need to make enhancements as well. On the mindset of governors, we also need to make a change. In the past decades, we have achieved great results. In many areas, we also achieved the status of an international center. We have become an international leader in different aspects. It doesn't mean, however, that we can rest on our own laurels. We need to enhance our status as an international financial, shipping, and trading center. We need to keep making enhancements. Otherwise, we won't be able to keep our strengths. We'll lose out to our global competitors. Legislators also need to remove the obstacles, the framework. We need to, in a humble manner, learn from each other. We need to learn from mainland China. We need to understand, respond to, and embrace changes. This is what we Hong Kong people are good at. We are flexible. We respond to changes. We also embrace changes. In the past 2 decades, the institutional strengths of one country, 2 systems give us success experience. Thank you, Deputy President. Dr. Chow Man Kong. The resolution of the CPC Central Committee on Further Deepening Reform Comprehensively to Advance Chinese Modernization lays down important directions on deepening reform comprehensively. We need to foster social justice to improve the livelihood for the people of the country. It is also the starting point and the ultimate goal of reform. Reform is meaningful only when it is for the people. That is exactly an important spirit of President Xi Jinping. The policy address echoes the spirit of the Third Plenum of the 20th Central Committee. Reform was mentioned in a lot of areas: talents, social welfare benefits, logistics, shipping. There are also relevant measures. I thank Mr. Doreen Kong for moving this motion so that we can delve into implementing the spirit of the Third Plenum in order to address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. We need to enhance the social system, and that has everything to do with addressing people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. We need to provide inclusive services, meet essential needs, and provide a cushion for those most in need. I want to talk about higher education or post-secondary education. It is important to the young people in Hong Kong. It also affects the upward mobility for young people in Hong Kong. We need to enhance the employment support system for young people. We also need to enhance the vocational training system. Mr. Xia Baolong mentioned we have great reputation, and that is an important resource and asset of Hong Kong. In fact, in developing Hong Kong as a post-secondary education hub, apart from local students who can help develop Hong Kong into an international hub for high-caliber talents, we can also attract international students to enlarge their social circles, to give them a global perspective, to give them competitive edge in the workplace in the future. I hope there will be more loan schemes for post-secondary school students. For example, for high achievers, school fees exemption should be provided. For example, for those achieving the grade of 2A, honors, second upper honors, school fees exemptions should be provided. They should also be retained in Hong Kong to work, to make contributions to Hong Kong, so that we can address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. We need to address an aging population and a declining birth rate. We need to have policies that cater for the needs of people in different age brackets. We couldn't allow the economic to to fare poorly just because of an aging population or a dwindling population. Apart from newborn baby bonus, tax concessions should also be given to parents or eligible parents. That's how we can address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. In relation to the International Shipping Center, in the report of the Third Plenum, it attaches a lot of importance to it. It provides jobs for tens of thousands of workers in Hong Kong. We need to see how we can strengthen collaboration, which in turn boosting the local economy. I so submit. Thank you, Deputy President. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Thank you, Deputy President. The third plenum of the 20th Central Committee of the CPC mentions a lot about Hong Kong, including Hong Kong's status as an international financial shipping trading center, building Hong Kong into an international hub for high-caliber talent, facilitating Hong Kong's active role in the opening up of the country, and so on. We need to enhance livelihood. We need to foster prosperity before we can achieve economic enhancements. Many problems have to do with economic issues. The Central People's Government always mentions finance and talents in Hong Kong. Mr. Shen Chunyao, the member of the Constitution and Law Committee of the NPC, said that we need to solve economic problems before we have the conditions to solve other problems. Mr. Shen mentioned demographic structure changes. We need to make arrangements having regard to the change. That is, we need to have regard to the prevailing situation, say housing, retail, finance, real estate, equity market, population policy. We need to have regard to the situation. Livelihood issues are at the top of the agenda. I'd like to talk about housing. I agree that we have to make changes and adjustments to the policy having regard to the actual situation. Together with my party colleagues of the BPA, we had been urging for the cancellation of spicy measures. For measures that have already completed their historical missions, they should be cancelled. In relation to the land lease extension mechanism, 6 years before expiry, they will be automatically extended for 50 years. That is indeed a good policy. It's time-saving. It's also very clear. This is definitely an example of having regard to the actual situation. We can boost the confidence of property developers. So the relaxation of the relevant measures is music to my ears. People who have different housing needs can also benefit from the policy. Transactions will also benefit. This will help with this will help members of the public to buy their own homes. Apart from buying their own homes, I'd also like to talk about public housing for those who cannot afford a private unit. The BPA has been lobbying the government to convert vacant school premises to allow more members of the public to move into units. We went to a vacant school premise in Stanley together with Ms. Winnie Ho. The facilities are mature, they are high quality. There is also a sea view. There is nothing to find fault with. The living conditions are very good, but the demand far outstrips the supply. Many people in Hong Kong are still waiting for a housing unit. We need to convert vacant school premises into housing units for more members of the public to move into the units. At present, there are no short-term school premises that can be vacated to build housing. I so submit.
Dr. Wai Kwok. Mr. Deputy, I thank Ms. Doreen Kong for moving the motion and 4 other members for their amendments. Mr. Deputy, the 20th CPC Central Committee has passed the resolution on further deepening reform comprehensively to advance Chinese modernization. That means we should put people first as a starting point of reform so that the fruit of development could be shared with the people in a fair manner, and that the government can address matters closest to the hearts of people. As for Hong Kong government, it should also be flexible in embracing changes and grasping opportunities. And I think that this resolution is an inspiration for the government. I agree with the original motion that we should implement the spirit of comprehensively deepening reform in the Third Plenary Session and earnestly address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. Mr. Deputy, I think the 2 sides of the coin is to take forward development as well as addressing people's livelihood issues. The Chief Executive John Lee's latest policy address fully implements the spirit in the Third Plenary Session by laying the groundwork for implementing reforms, leveraging on the institutional strengths of one country, 2 systems. We can grasp the opportunities in our country, bolster the position of our 8 centers, and promote economic development. At the same time, we want to share the fruit of success with the people. We put people first. People are the starting point of government reforms, and we support that. After decades of development in Hong Kong on various matters such as elderly care, welfare, education, housing, some deep-rooted problems have emerged. This also explains why the government must show resolve in taking forward at the critical point of transitioning from stability to prosperity. The BPA also puts forward suggestions to the government from time to time. For example, the government should further remove obstacles and cut red tape so as to maximize the plot ratio as much as possible, relax building height restrictions, and increase the supply of housing units. The BPA is also concerned about redevelopment of aged housing estates. Such redevelopment projects should be kick-started in an orderly manner. We need to make a start. On healthcare, the government should expedite its progress on providing primary care, as well as expeditiously taking forward the second 10-year hospital development plan. On employment, we believe that an employment support fund should be set up to help those who would like to become entrepreneurs instead of employees. There should also be more support for different groups. For example, for elderly people with a living property but without other forms of assets, dedicated policies should be formulated to help them. On elderly care, we believe a holistic plan should be put in place. For example, in new development areas, space should be reserved for elderly care facilities. Elderly care centers in the Greater Bay Area should also be set up for accommodating elderly in Hong Kong. Now, we have some deep-rooted problems. Reform takes time. We need a comprehensive strategy and layout. We also need to have the concept of system. However, I believe that if we're able to make a joint effort, we'll be able to implement the spirit of the resolution passed by the Third Plenary Session to enhance people's fulfillment and happiness and the sense of gain and enhance social cohesion in Hong Kong. I so submit. Mr. Ambrose Lam. Mr. Deputy, children are the future of Hong Kong, but they are often neglected. I'm speaking on behalf of children of single-parent households. According to a study conducted by LEUNG in September 2024, in July 2021, there were altogether 72,000 single-parent households, and the ratio is 6.3%, far exceeding 3.9% in 2001. And that number refers to children living with the single parent. Usually, the single parent would take up part-time jobs. So the median monthly income in 2021 was just $16,000, far below $24,000 of median monthly income for normal families. In other words, single-parent children are the victims prone to intergenerational poverty. In face of these figures, the government still adopts the same welfare approach, and that is some $3,620 of allowance will be given to these households, together with $400 of working family as allowance. This is just a drop of ocean. It doesn't support their families, but we're talking about $2.4 billion of annual expenditure on the part of the government, excluding administrative costs. Despite using public coffers, the government is unable to resolve the issue for single-parent households. Reform is necessary to help them. We've been talking about this reform for 20 years, and that is an amendment bill in relation to Children's Responsibility Bill. The purpose is to change the mentality among parents, and that is children are their responsibility and not rights. The bill is called Children Proceedings Parental Responsibility Bill. For parents getting a divorce, they do not understand the new concept. They fight for their rights of access to their children, and they argue over maintenance payments, and that one party may accuse the other of getting the maintenance payments and not taking care of their child. That accounts for the intense bickering and the conflict between the parents. Even with the court awarding granting an award to either party, the problem remains unresolved, and children are the ultimate victims. And that is why the Children's Proceedings Parental Responsibility Bill will spell out clearly this concept to parents, so that there is a clear pathway to enhance parents' understanding that even after the divorce, both parents have the responsibility of caring for their children, and that they could save the dispute over their children's rights. The other objective of the bill is to ensure that the child will be properly looked after. Say if the mother wins guardianship over the child, and then if maintenance payment is not the prerequisite, then both parents will be willing to shoulder their responsibility and look after the child. And that means they would not be queuing up for the dole from the government, and that the government can have some savings on the public coffers. The purpose of the bill is to address a change in mindset. The government should show resolve and help address this livelihood issue for children of single-parent households in the community. I support the motion and the amendments. Mr. Lee Sai-wing, thank you. I support Ms. Doreen Kong's original motion. The Central People's Government attaches great importance to improving people's livelihood. The third plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee puts forward a series of measures to enhance the quality of life of the people. The government has been quickening its pace in addressing people's concerns and difficulties. The Commission on Poverty has set up a number of groups, and they've rolled out measures such as the pilot scheme on community living room, Stride and Rise program, as well as another scheme to take care of the underprivileged. That means riding on the study conducted by the COP, the measures are rolled out to provide tailor-made support for those in need. This is a very different approach from the previous government. The previous government conducted a study to set the poverty line before formulating any measure on poverty alleviation. Now we support this current government's approach. There are three groups of the underprivileged. This is based on the census conducted in 2021. Now it's been 3 years. Are the census data still effective? Now that the three underprivileged groups have been identified, do they benefit from the government's new measures? Has any new group of the underprivileged emerged? And is there any change in the trend of poverty? In order to earnestly address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life, the government should, on a regular basis, update the data in relation to poverty in society so that quantitative and qualitative studies can be conducted to gauge the impact of government policies before formulating targeted measures to help them. According to the third plenary session, the government should formulate measures to address the issues of an aging population. We have 1.4 million elderly people in Hong Kong. Now, this has posed a challenge to the government in recent years. There are a number of elderly care measures in Shenzhen that we can perhaps look towards. For example, on public transport, elderly people aged 60 years or above can enjoy free bus rides in Shenzhen. Whereas for the $2 trip in Hong Kong, starting from 2022, the age limit has been relaxed to elderly citizens aged 60 years or above. I understand the government would like to tweak this policy, and some senior citizens will be disappointed. In Shenzhen, there are also free healthcare checks. Apart from normal blood tests, they also have tests on liver functions, blood lipid, and glucose levels, etc. In Hong Kong, the government has set up district health centers across the territory. These centers will provide health risk assessments for members of the public. But does it mean that senior citizens will be able to have better access to health care, or must they turn to district health centers for the service? As I understand, the queue to become a member of the elderly health centers is 2 years long, and only when you become a member will you be able to enjoy the free checkup service. The third policy is this: in Shenzhen, using a co-payment approach, there is collaboration between Shenzhen government and private organizations. We have canteens for elderly people. For those aged 70 or above, they can enjoy a meal for just 5 yuan. There are numerous canteens operating under this model. We also have NGOs providing this service in Hong Kong, but this is subject to government approval before the meal delivery service can be provided. The elderly canteens can help address elderly problems. It's also a venue for elderly people to socialize, and we can help lift the burden off the shoulder of elderly. It's also a venue for holding health talks for elderly people. I think these are policies that we can make reference to. As Presidency's keynote speech suggests, we should earnestly address people's livelihood issues. I hope a joint effort can be made.
Ms. Chen Hao-yen. Thank you, Deputy President. The resolution adopted in the Third Plenary Session of the 20th Central Committee has confirmed the objective of further deepening reforms, and that the country's reforms should be able to promote social cohesion. We need to adopt a people-oriented approach and consider things from the perspective of citizens. As Presidency said, people are the most important, and we are doing more to improve people's livelihood. In the course of the development of the country, we are aiming to improve people's livelihood, and that should be the result of our policies. That's why today the motion earnestly addressing people's concessions and difficulties in daily life is so important, and I will support the motion and amendments. After the pandemic, many citizens are expecting the government's policy direction should be people-oriented. So what we're thinking now is, in the reform of the country against this backdrop, how can we actually tackle the root cause of the long-standing problems in Hong Kong? We should also adopt innovative solutions or even have systematic reforms to tackle the problems. I will focus on the area of healthcare policies. We have a very advanced healthcare system, but with demographic changes and the services lagging behind, as well as the rising healthcare costs, there are many points in the healthcare system that we must change. I have suggested that we should take an approach that is more preventive oriented instead of the approach that we're taking right now, treatment oriented. That will also help address the acute manpower shortage problem. I also have 4 other suggestions. I have suggested these to the Chief Executive before during the policy address consultation. We should have an additional hospital to tackle the inadequate health care services in Kowloon. We have community services that are lagging behind in Kowloon at the moment. We desperately need another hospital. So I urge the government to not only develop the northern metropolis, we should also address the healthcare shortage in existing neighborhoods. Next, a new dental school. With a new dental school, we should be able to train more dentists to work in the public healthcare system. The important part about this is to make sure there are general practice dentists as well as dental hygienists, so that we can practice primary dental care. And this will conform to the direction of the primary health care blueprint as well. We also need to have mobile vehicles to provide healthcare services. With this, we will have a more flexible system to provide various medical services on a community level. So this should divert the flow of people going straight to hospitals. It will also enhance awareness that people should be more prevention oriented. We should also make use of technologies to safeguard public health. We should set up a database of the health parameters of people, and we can make use of big data analyses to make sure we can provide targeted treatment. With the data, we will also be able to better develop our healthcare system in various areas. These suggestions will definitely help us implement better the spirit of the third plenary session, as well as genomic testing, detection of diseases, as well as targeted treatment. Such would need data. We should also leverage on our advantages with connecting the mainland and the world and make contributions to the development of the country. As a LegCo member, we are trying to address people's concerns, and we should put people first no matter what. Thank you. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you. I would like to speak in support of the motion as well as the amendments proposed by other members. This resolution is on further deepening reforms comprehensively. There are 300-odd reform measures quoted in the resolution. We should leverage on our one country, two systems principle and consolidate our status of various centers. We should also create an international hub for high caliber talents. We should better connect the mainland and the world, and we should also ensure there is systemic interfacing. And Director Xia Baolong actually said that to implement the spirit of the third plenary session, Hong Kong should seek reforms for the betterment of Hong Kong. As Dr. So Cheung-wing of G15+ said, we should address people's concerns. We should be practical. And we need to make sure we are alleviating poverty. We need to deal with scarcity in land. And as G15+ member Dr. Johnny NG said in his amendment, the government should make use of one country, two systems to consolidate the 8 centers positioning and develop new quality productive forces. We should make good use of new quality productive forces for the development of economy of Hong Kong so that the government will have more resources to address people's concerns. Due to time constraints, I cannot talk about all my thoughts on all of the policy areas I'm interested in. I'll just talk about some long-standing communities of the community. Nothing about people's livelihood is trivial. As Ms. Doreen said, we should address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. Illegal shopfront extension, illegal parking, rodent problems. These are all problems that we have heard many times before, but these are still long-standing problems. It's not that hard to deal with these problems. It does not require extensive manpower or resources. So why are these simple problems long-standing? I think the cause is because there is no clear delineation of responsibilities. And in fact, whenever citizens have to communicate problems to 1823, the first part of the solution would often be delineating the responsibilities of the departments to figure out who is responsible. And often it would take long for the departments to figure that out. And sometimes the department doesn't even have the power to deal with the matter, even when a responsible department is decided. We have the steering committee on district governance, and this is an approach that was never taken before. I support this approach because there is high-level steering to make sure there is interdepartmental coordination. So through better coordination, there is reform. I suggest the government refer to mainland practices in digital governance. For example, in Foshan, Hangzhou, and Shanghai, they make use of smart big data systems to have received reports and give feedback to citizens. I think we can make use of this experience to set up a study brain platform or a platform for care teams and 1823. So with a flat platform, it will avoid the problem of having to assign a particular department to deal with certain complaints. We can also make use of drones and refer to the geographical positions to address people's complaints. We can also have uniform assignment of complaint handling, and we can have real-time handling or real-time updates of the handling of inquiries. Deputy President, I so submit. Mr. Andrew Lam. I would first like to thank Ms. Doreen Kong for moving the motion and other members for proposing amendments. We are faced with a momentous change that we have not seen before. We need to rise up to the various challenges we face during this time. There are rapid developments in technologies. Some, unfortunately, are left behind. They feel helpless, especially the grassroots. They cannot come up with their own solutions. Some are unemployed, some have to change jobs, they have unstable income. Compounded by inflation, they cannot even have the money to sustain themselves. They have to be very prudent with the use of money for the various rising costs. People have no choice but to try to cut on their expenses. According to Census and Statistics Department figures, from 2004 to June 2024, the cumulative change increase is 39.6%, and for each year it's 1.9%. A CPI from 2004 to 2023, the cumulative increase is 58%. Each year it's about 2.7%. So wage earners' purchasing power has decreased over the years. The Commission on Poverty has identified 3 groups for targeted poverty alleviation: SDU tenants, single-parent households, as well as elderly households. The Commission on Poverty has conducted detailed analyses, and it was found that many SDU tenants were low-income, low-end earners, and they have a heavy burden on childcare and elderly care. Single-parent households have low income, and 70% of them rely on CSSA. They still have to face rents. 80% of the elderly households are retired and rely on government benefits. Apart from economic and financial needs, they also have social needs that we have to address. From the aforementioned analyses, SDU tenants' children would not have the resources for them to participate in tuition or remedial classes or extracurricular activities. Elderly households are also faced with difficulties. They have made contributions to Hong Kong before, and now we have to think about how we can help them. We have been talking about putting more resources in social welfare, and we have put a lot of money on welfare. Every day we are spending $300 million on welfare. It's about how we can make sure the money goes to the people in need. We have various aspects of the problem. We have inquiries, we have referrals. The process is often very complicated. We need to have a better allocation of resources. To do so, we need better technologies. With big data, we can do better. With big data, we know who are the most in need, and we should invite them to take part in certain schemes. It is only when the particular households are identified, we can have social workers help them. With data analyses and a data platform, the government can do better in policy making as well to better address people's needs. So we should also do well in providing financial support. In the third plenary session, the President also talked about improving people's livelihoods. Most important concerns would be important because that would help make people happier. And this would take not a short time. The government should make sure they have continuous efforts and be pragmatic, involve the whole community, improve social cohesion, and instill confidence in the public. I so submit, Deputy President.
Ms. Chair Kenneth Leung. Thank you, Deputy President. Further deepening reform comprehensively is the core concept of the resolution. It also advances Chinese modernization. I thank Ms. Doreen for moving this motion so that we can discuss this matter in the Council. In a way, we can enhance social cohesion in Hong Kong. Reform and innovation opens up a wider road for young people in Hong Kong. More importantly, we help them break free from the traditional framework and mindset. That's exactly how they can serve Hong Kong in a determined way. They can then make contributions to the country. With knowledge, we can change our destiny. That is also one of the major ways to enhance our upward mobility. In 2023, for those between 25 and 39, 2/3 of them have post-secondary qualifications. That's our achievement. But academic qualifications do not necessarily mean better happiness in life. In society, the middle class are marginalized. We see this phenomenon in Hong Kong. The education system also emphasizes competition. It emphasizes examinations as well as qualifications. It brings pressure on students, and it also limits their potential. Some students may be very good at music. However, we don't have a lot of great musicians. The reason is that parents want children to learn to play music just because they want to be admitted to schools. The country needs scientists, engineers, but at the same time, they also need skilled workers. Curricula need to be innovative. We also need to break free from the traditional approach of placing emphasis on qualifications. Less than 15% of the students study the Category B subjects. We need to carry out reform to provide a better living environment for the young people in Hong Kong. Many parents want children to study medicine, law, business administration, and so on. So when young people choose majors, they think about their career path first. Whether they have interest in the subject comes as a second factor. Some graduates change to another career path, and it would be seen as a setback if they couldn't carve out as glittering a career path. Actually, young people can also climb up the career ladder when they turn to another career path midway their original path. Students receive scholarships, and this is actually one of the ways for students to switch to another career path. We need to dovetail with the reform of the Employment Retraining Board At the same time, we also need to train new talents for emerging industries so we can enhance social mobility as a whole. Young people are the future of Hong Kong and the country, so we need all-round policies for young people. We also need sufficient support for young people. Young people in the grassroots need support, but the spirit of the third plenum is to deepen reform comprehensively. So today I spoke on the education and career aspects of young people. I hope that the government will take these into account in order to help young people in Hong Kong. Thank you, Deputy President. Mr. Jimmy Ng. In 2022, in the ceremony when the principal officials took office, there were 4 hopes. One of the 4 hopes is to earnestly address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. Last year, we had a different theme of the policy address. We needed to improve livelihood issues in Hong Kong. Apart from rolling out measures, we also need to boost the local economy. This July, the third plenum of the 20th Central Committee of the CPC passed a resolution on further deepening reform comprehensively to advance Chinese modernization. It emphasizes deepening reform comprehensively and put people first. The purpose of carrying out reforms is to address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. So how can we do so? The pressing issue is to solve the livelihood problems in daily life. Housing matter is the long-standing problem. Using basic housing units to replace SDU is the first step forward. We need to increase housing supply, say the redevelopment of housing estates in order to provide more housing. Healthcare is also one of the important issues. The third plenum mentioned advancing the public healthcare system. We also need to promote primary healthcare as well as promote private-public partnership. We need to advance the provision of dental services. We need to show care for elderly people. We also need to provide support services to carers. We need to ease their pressure. The public coffers will soon be drained if we keep pressing ahead with social benefit policies. The middle class is the backbone of society. They don't want to keep getting benefits from society. We need policies that revitalize the economy so that businesses have customers, and the middle class will also be able to earn a better living. I have 2 suggestions. 1, development need to be diversified. Many people think the real estate market is the key market. When we develop other markets, it will be difficult to have all-round development. Say, Kai Tak community development, apart from providing quality housing, we also need to focus on education infrastructures, tourism infrastructures, as well as a gourmet economy. So we need to allow space for sustainable development so that SMEs across different sectors can also set up presence in the community in order to boost local economy. Associate Dean of the Faculty of Economics said, the Hong Kong market is too small. We cannot solely rely on domestic circulation. We need to seek partners in the GBA. If we need to realize economic transformation, we definitely need to work with other GBA cities. We need to combine our strengths. As long as we can grow larger the pie, everyone will have a job, everyone will have better income. We also need to be a super connector. We need to attract foreign investment. Only then will we have the resources to improve livelihood. Thank you, Deputy President. Ms. Nixie Lam. I thank Ms. Doreen for moving this motion. President Xi Jinping said that we need to earnestly address people's concerns and difficulties in daily life. We also need to enhance social public services in order to implement the spirit of the Third Plenum of the 20th Central Committee of the CPC. There are birth policies mentioned. We need to provide a childbearing-friendly environment. There are childbearing leave. There are also other benefits in relation to childbearing, child rearing, as well as housing. The purpose is to lower the childbearing and child rearing costs. Assisted reproductive technologies have been incorporated in medical healthcare insurance. In mainland China, 27 provinces have these services, and the number will rise to 31 in the future. The high cost of assistive reproductive technologies turn away many parents want to be. When it comes to insurance policies, regarding Social Security payments, well, we can see an increase of 19% in 2023 compared with 2022. After assistive reproductive technologies, some parents become old and then they give up on the relevant technologies. But with medical insurance, the fees have been reduced by some 70 to 80%. Around the country, some 300,000 babies are born with assistive reproductive technologies. We need to learn from the mainland China. There should be more quota to receive assisted reproductive technologies. The purpose is to help parents who want to have children but fail to have children when they are young. Then we can ease the financial pressure on grassroots families. Quite many grassroots families do not consider having a baby because of a lack of financial means as well as the lack of ability to educate children. Some engage nannies and engage childcare services. Some find it difficult to balance between job and taking care of their families. When women become pregnant, their income is also affected. They become less financially independent. The 3-day childbearing leave is a good start. Society will recognize family-friendly policies. We need to gauge the effectiveness of the policies before we expand the relevant coverage to cover enterprises all over the city. Apart from childbearing leave, we also need to take into account flexi hours. We need to put in place arrangements about childcare at workplace, say child respite services quota, as well as after-school care services. They can be extended to 2024 to 25. They can also be extended to all 18 districts in Hong Kong. We can further increase the quota having regard to the actual situation in order to flexibly deploy resources. The goal is to let parents have peace of mind while they are at work. Childbearing or child rearing is never easy. It's down to personal choice whether to have a baby or not, but the administration also needs to provide support and policies in order to overcome the hurdles for parents so that we can enhance social cohesion. Thank you.
Mr. Tang Fei, Mr. Deputy, I speak in support of Ms. Doreen Kong's motion and other members' amendments to fully implement the spirit of the third plenary session in order to improve people's livelihood in Hong Kong. We need to understand what the resolution of the third plenary session means. I remember when the publicity department sent a delegation to Hong Kong to explain the spirit of the third plenary session, they suggest the following. That is, in order to understand the third plenary session's resolution, we need to understand that this is an official policy document promulgated by the ruling party in China, and that is Communist Party of China. This is also a policy document applicable to different government bureaus and departments. And there we see more detailed drawings of this plan, so to speak. Now, just now, members already mentioned the highlights of this resolution, and that is we need to give play to our institutional strengths of one country, two systems. We need to bolster our status as an international financial shipping and trade center. More importantly, we need to build an international hub for high caliber talents in Hong Kong. And in fact, what I mentioned in the resolution of the third plenary session can be found in the government's statement, and that is the Committee on Education, Technology and Talent will be set up by the government to coordinate work on these three fronts so as to build Hong Kong into an international hub for high caliber talents. In fact, if we take a look at the 13th and to the 15th paragraphs in the resolution, we see that it's national policy to promote joint development of education, technology, and talents. And this is also a reminder for us. For international hub for high caliber talents, what does it mean? How does it relate to improving people's livelihood? It's for the SAR government to give us a definition and formulate relevant policies. In 2008, China implemented the 1,000 People Program. There are two major types of talents. High-tech talents focusing on research and development, and the other kind is high caliber entrepreneurs. I believe that we should do at least more than the 1,000 People Program rolled out by China back then. So when it comes to schematic drawing at the level of departments, we need to iron out details. So this is a major policy for our country and for Hong Kong. No matter the details of the policy, we need to make sure that it caters for improving people's livelihood. Now, the 1,000 Talents Program is all about talents, but whereas for Hong Kong, we have high-tech, high-caliber talents working in universities, focusing on research and development. The government should set indicators in terms of research development opportunities for them so as to enhance our competitiveness in this era of technology. Now, if the high-caliber talents belong to the group, such as investors, entrepreneurs of major corporations, we should gauge the success by considering, for example, how much capital they're bringing over, how much wealth can be created for Hong Kong society. A targeted approach should be adopted to measure the effectiveness of the schemes. That is, we should be able to gauge the wealth and the opportunities brought about by these talents to our society. And we need to adopt a scientific method to assess the effectiveness of the talent admission schemes. Mr. Champouin, the third plenary session set out a new starting point for our country. That is to further deepen reform and advance Chinese modernization. These are the objectives. The third plenary session is beyond doubt a very important plenum with far-reaching implications. there is also a very important policy document. In terms of this resolution, on several occasions, Hong Kong is given some missions such as development into an international hub for high caliber talents, consolidating the status of Hong Kong as an international trade, shipping, financial center, leveraging the institutional strengths of one country, two systems. It shows that the central authorities have high hopes for Hong Kong. We need to learn and fully implement the spirit and the resolution of the Third Plenary Session. We need to seek and embrace changes. I believe this will be pivotal to promoting high-quality development and advancing Chinese modernization of our country. The resolution adopted includes over 300 measures of reform. Hong Kong has deep-seated conflicts, and we also need to undertake reform. That's why I agree with the Chief Executive's policy address. We need reform to enhance development and build the future together. We need to address people's livelihood problems. We need to address the pain points and bottlenecks of development in Hong Kong so that we take forward reforms in light of local conditions and circumstances. And this depends on the wisdom of the current term of government. I'd like to speak on healthcare reform, and I'd like to show my appreciation for the government's resolve on this matter. This is a long-standing problem for Hong Kong. There are a number of initiatives such as the chronic cold care pilot scheme, and there is also other schemes to change the mentality from treatment-based to a preventive-based model. We also have other new mechanisms such as the 1+ primary evaluation of medicine so as to bring new hope to patients. And for a long time, we've been short of healthcare manpower in the public system. The government will actively import healthcare manpower to meet local demand. Inevitably, reforms will touch on vested interests. However, in order to undertake reforms in depth to meet the aspirations of people for a better life, we need to undertake reform. This will provide the impetus for us. Now, on public-private housing, public-private healthcare systems, the government will review the roles played by the Department of Health, the Primary Care Commission, as well as the Hospital Authority to optimize the use of resources. The Hospital Authority will also review its fee structure so as to provide services to users most in need in order to make the public healthcare system sustainable. The sector and the public will also be consulted on the legislative proposal to amend the fee structure. Now, I believe we should make reference to the CU Medical Center to enhance the transparency of fees and charges of private hospitals, so as to make the services more affordable. Only by doing so will we be able to improve healthcare in Hong Kong and enhance the quality and effectiveness of the system and promote the healthy development in the long term. From comprehensive reform to deepening the comprehensive reform to further deepening the comprehensive reform, we are in an ever more complex backdrop. We also understand the basis of reform, and we've continued to bolster the foundation for reform. I believe by further deepening the comprehensive reform, we'll be able to address people's livelihood and enhance cohesion. I support the original motion as well as the amendments. Mr. Lam Chun Sing. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. The Third Plenary Session has passed a resolution. A targeted poverty alleviation mechanism will be set up to prevent and combat poverty. There are also supporting measures for low-income groups. We'll need to lift them out of their plight. The government, in our country has shown resolve in poverty alleviation. We should follow suit. In Hong Kong, all along we've had a wide health gap because of the Gini coefficient. Back then, in 2021, the coefficient was 0.357, and it then went up to 0.359. Nowadays, we seldom hear about poverty line. It's a line for welfare handouts. I think for Gini coefficient and poverty line, they come with limitations. We need to adopt a more targeted approach to help single-parent households and SDU tenants. But the government should not shun the issue of poverty line in combating poverty. We need to set KPIs. For example, should we adopt an absolute value for poverty? What about the basic living expenses? What should it be? If the income falls below a certain level, then should the household be regarded as a poor household? We have 110,000 subdivided units in Hong Kong. In the coming years, will we be able to phase out several 10,000 of them? Targeted services should be provided to single parents so that they can get a job and earn and make a living and lift themselves out of poverty. For elderly people, the situation is more complicated. For some elderly people living in public housing, they may be income poor, but as they may not be living in poverty. What about those in private housing? They need to pay for expenses as well, such as private health care. The government should provide more support for younger olds. They should be incorporated in the primary care system so that they have they can visit the clinics on a regular basis and provide more support to more elderly people. For low-skilled workers earning minimum wage of $40 an hour, then their monthly wages will only amount to $18,000. Even if they earn $45 an hour, would that suffice in helping them make ends meet? I think that the answer is apparent. Now, minimum wage rate will be reviewed once a year, taking into account changes in price levels, to make sure that the minimum wage will not be eroded by inflation, but it's still not sufficient to help our workers. I think that the formula should include a component of sharing the success of economic development so that the income earned by the workers will not be out of touch with economic development. For 3 to 4 person households receiving handouts, only perhaps one of them has a job. In the end, the whole household suffers. The common scene is that in a household there may be an elderly family member requiring care, and other family members may need to become carers. So the only family member not being a carer will have to take up the job and the financial burden. The ERB and other training organizations should provide some learn and earn schemes to encourage women in the community to receive training and help earn an income for the households. Now, under the spirit of the third plenary session, I hope that the SAR government will continue to take forward poverty alleviation measures to address people's aspirations for a better life. I so submit I support the motion.
Mr. Rock Chen. Thank you, President. Deputy President. The resolution has a comprehensive plan, and there are 7 areas to focus on to address people's concerns and to promote the high quality development of the economy. As a special administrative region of China, we should implement the spirit of the third plenary session. I very much support the motion moved by Ms. Doreen Kong. As a result, I will talk about 4 aspects in my speech. I will talk about how deepening reform can enhance social cohesion. We have seen recently a popular Netflix program, Culinary Class Wars. The chefs are popular among the public, so we can see that academia is not the only way to go. So we should really enhance public awareness that people should not go into academia. We should enhance recognition for vocational education and training, provide more recognition for qualifications of vocational pathways, as well as enhance the collaboration between universities of applied sciences and the business sector to make sure the curriculum matches the needs of the industries. We have not seen as much recovery as we see. We have seen businesses closing. The government needs to make sure there is proper training and retraining in order to equip the grassroots with the right skills so as to tie in with the needs of the 8 centers positioning. We have 180,000 civil servants. They play a big role in social cohesion. The government should continue to enhance reward and punishment mechanism for civil servants in order to make sure civil servants are rewarded based on their merits, not on their seniority. The DAB had a recent research. 30% of the females have family commitments and are unable to work. So I urge the government to provide more childcare support, such as increasing the quota for community nannies in order to release the potential labor force. On housing, the Housing Authority recently implemented a scheme, well-being startup program for youngsters, and they would have their rent waived. I urge the government to expand the scope to cover more grassroots. I also urge the government to review the effectiveness of SME financing. But then we need to make sure we control the risks so that people are not dodging their debt obligations in order to ensure proper use of public resources. We have 80 million in population in the Greater Bay Area. There are ample opportunities in the GBA to take advantage of. We need to make sure there is proper information disseminated in order to facilitate people working and studying in the GBA. In the policy address, there are multiple housing-related initiatives, including replacing substandard subdivided units with basic housing units, as well as relaxing some restrictions for mortgage. That will reduce the pressure on youngsters on purchasing their first property. I believe this will enhance the sense of belonging of youngsters, so I support this. I so submit, Deputy President, speaking in support of the motion and amendments. Dr. David Lam. Thank you, President. The resolution has multiple measures and a comprehensive plan for further deepening reform and provide more protection of the people and enhance social cohesion, promote the development of governance, as well as the various aspects of the country. There is an emphasis on education, environmental protection. It also points out that in 2035, it is a midterm goal, and we are moving towards the second centenary goal. Under one country, two systems, we should integrate into the National Development Plan. And in the policy address, we have specific reform measures on the reform of the healthcare system. This would feed into building a healthy China. The policy address is comprehensive. It has focus on people's needs. the policy address said there should be a redelineation of responsibilities of various healthcare departments to build a healthcare network and set up community pharmacies so that clinical pharmacy services can be provided to members of the public as well as residential care homes. And we can have healthcare managers in the sense that we are connecting public and private healthcare, and that there is further collaboration between healthcare and pharmacy that will tie in with the increasing need for healthcare and meet people's increasing expectations. Chinese herbs are important assets of China. We should promote the development and use of Chinese herbs. We should make sure there is further interfacing of Chinese and Western medicine. I think we need to have targeted research of herb-drug interaction. We should have comparative studies so as to see how Chinese medicine can be made use of in the treatment of chronic diseases. And we should also promote referrals of Chinese and Western medical practitioners in order to promote interfacing of Chinese and Western medicine. On elderly care, we have been encouraging families to meet family doctors at least yearly so that family doctors can formulate treatment and prevention plans for families. Without dental health, there is no health, so to speak. We need to make sure people get adequate oral care. And in fact, in the public healthcare system, we had a long shortage of dentists. We have engaged a number of dentists in the public healthcare system recently, and I appreciate that. Apart from enhancing public-private partnership, procuring oral health services in the private sector should alleviate the difficulties of the public in getting dental services. Without mental health, one is not considered healthy also. I also appreciate the government is enhancing mental health services and having a tiered system in place. We need to make sure we can address people's needs with different professionals such as clinical psychologists, and they will soon get proper registration. That I also appreciate. We need to implement the spirit of the third plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee. We need to take a targeted approach to rise up to the challenges of an aging population. Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Lau. Deputy President, the third plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee has passed a resolution in July this year to further deepen reform comprehensively as well as advance Chinese modernization. There's also a confirmation of the overall objective that there should be an adoption of a people-oriented approach and consider the long-term interests of the people and make reform plans accordingly. According to President Xi, we need to consider the interests of the people when implementing reform to make sure the reform would tie in with the needs of the public. The third plenary session has emphasized the value of being people-oriented. The policy address also emphasizes reform, and that ties in with the spirit of the third plenary session. This is a good starting point. We need to address people's concerns. The government should make sure they know what people need in terms of employment and education, and tackle the pain points so as to address people's concerns and difficulties. According to Director Xiaobao Leung, on his visit to Hong Kong, He spent 7 days in Hong Kong and visited many different places. He acts as a good example for the government. He went to Lion Rock Park and the community living room in Shenzhen. He also went to a Chinese restaurant to have exchanges with the public. He's very down to earth. I urge government officials and civil servants to take the same approach when surveying the needs of the community and formulate targeted measures to address people's concerns. The report to the 20th National People's Congress that the city should be a people's city, and we should involve the people in building communities so that issues can be resolved in a community level. Take one of the neighborhoods in mainland as an example. People in that neighborhood actively set up a platform to invite representatives of the authorities and the community to fix the lifts in the neighborhood, and they have been successful in their efforts. The government should refer to the relevant example in resolving neighborhood disputes in Hong Kong so as to enhance people's sense of belonging and responsibility. Deputy President, apart from what was said in the motion about addressing people's concerns and difficulties in daily life, in livelihood and social welfare in the grassroots, but the middle class, we should not ignore them. They are faced with many challenges as well. They make great contributions to the development of Hong Kong. We have uncertainties in the global economy. We have high interest rates. We have high inflation. There are rising costs for the middle class as well. They pay many taxes, but they do not have much financial support. They therefore feel undervalued by the government. The government should do more to support the middle class. The BPA, my party, has long advocated for the setting up of a commission on the middle class to have targeted measures for the middle class, for them to move up the ladder. I also urge the government to set up a middle class dashboard to make sure there is transparency in communication to better meet the needs of the middle class, to make them happy. Deputy President, I so submit speaking in support of the motion and amendments.
多謝主